All right, it's JPEG to RAW photo review show number 38, and we've made it to the August images. All right. And before we get started, let me show you how you would enter each month. And you go to our website, which is jpegtororaw.com/contest. And right there you have the two links. I'm showing you for October, it is open again, but we are encouraging seasonal images, which we're getting some good ones. So you can enter right through the web page from there. It'll take you somewhere where you can upload your image, and it's no longer limited as much on the file size. Now, you can't send me like multi-terabyte or multi-gig, but there is some limits. But you shouldn't have trouble getting your photos size to fit that. Of course, the easiest way is just go on Facebook. We're on both. We have two groups, a beginner group and a regular group, and you can enter through those. The link for those, or the way to enter, is the album at the top of the page, which, there you go, right there. In our regular group, you can see the album at the top of the page, and you just go right there and enter, and we'll be open for a few more days, and then we'll start in November. And before long, AD, to be ready for the end of the year contest, which is our big one, which is the one where we do the best of 2018 in this case.
It seems like we just did that.
I know, it has gone by so fast.
Wow, yeah, this year has just it's just flown. It's been crazy.
Yep. All right, so let's get started with. Let me get the first image up here. You ready?
Sure.
All right. As always, we'll start with the beginners group this time, and again, the theme for August, because we're going back to August, was open. So anything you wanted to submit, and anything goes. Within reason. First up is this image from Nancy Smith, and she says, "The simple joys of the county fair." And I'm it's not good for me, but I'm a big fan of cotton candy. So I don't get it very often, but I love cotton candy, which the little girl here is eating some cotton candy.
Yeah.
So Nancy says, "Stepped a bit out of my comfort zone and shot in full sun," which I'm sure if you're at the county fair, it was probably during the middle of the day here, and she had that.
Yeah, so full sun can be challenging. Yes. If they're in the light. So I've got a couple of questions, because I know Nancy's out there right now, and she's kind of, I think she's experimenting a little bit, which I want to be positive about this. Mike, my philosophy is that whatever we say, we're still trying to be positive and generate creativity and don't take anything negatively. So I have to ask questions, though, because I got a little bit of a feel of what she's doing here. And I saw this in a couple of photo sites, and I'm just wondering the thought process or why. But it looks to me as though she has added a bit of targeted bokeh to this image. So I can see that close to the young lady's head, that behind her there's a cart there, a food cart, and the stuff is very clear. And then as it moves away from her to the left a little bit, it starts to get a much more bokeh, which is an automatic in my head pops up like there's something with the image. So I just wondered, I'm sure Nancy was thinking, and she can tell me, we're about a 30-second delay here. I'm sure she was thinking that there's a lot of distractions in the background, and that a good idea would be to bokeh that out a little bit. And I would agree with Nancy on that. I think that's a wonderful idea. But if you're going to do it in post, you're going to have to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars in research on how to bokeh a background using depth maps and all sorts of stuff. And if you don't believe me, you can ask Apple and Android, who are having a huge fight over who has the better auto bokehing background portrait shot software. It's very difficult to do that. I've tried with some of my images to do that as well. I just want to make a suggestion, because we have another image we're going to look at that does the same thing. And I just make a suggestion to make the feathering on your selection. I think she's using like a range selection in Lightroom, which is like you bring it out and it's like a big oval, and you can change the size of it and target it where you want to, and then blur things. She might be using a plugin of some sorts as well to make that transition between the affected area and the non-affected area, make that really smooth and feathery. So it's not such an abrupt stop or change. Because I look at this and I'm saying like the lens can't do that.
Yeah. You're seeing that gray thing, right? If we're looking straight at it to her left or our left of her, that gray piece right there is the giveaway.
Right. Now, my question here, Nancy, would be this. If the background wasn't working for you, is this just a little girl you don't know? Is this a little girl you do know? If it is, how about moving her a little bit more to the left, and let's see that homemade sign in the back, because I'm sure that says homemade caramel corn or homemade cotton candy or something there. I think it says caramel corn probably on it. But to have that homemade sign in there with her eating the cotton candy, I think gives it a little bit more story. So we need to talk a little bit tonight, I think, from the photos that I'm seeing, a little bit about backgrounds and how we need to be very wary of backgrounds. It seems to be a theme in tonight's photos. I'm not sure if Mike selected them that way or if that's just the way it came out. But that's always important. We always get our subject right because it's like what we're hunting for. We're hunting for that subject. And then we got that evil background that just lurks around and says, I'm going to ruin your photo, or I'm going to jump in there and cause problems. So if Nancy, if that's what you were kind of struggling with, was the background here, I totally would agree with you. There's a lot going on there. Maybe, and this is the thing too, another subject that we're going to talk about tonight is outside your comfort zone also means talking to people when you take their photo and then sharing that photo back with them. I mean, that's a great connection to make with anybody. If you're doing street photography, you're going out and shooting at a fair or something like that, is take their photo and then have some cards ready with at least your email or your website so they can come and see the photos that you took, build a relationship. You'd be surprised how it'll turn into jobs and everything else for you. So make the first step. Taking the photos, but then also talking with the subject. So I'd love to know a little bit more on that aspect. And again, with the sun, it really tough here. I'm imagining that there was some harsh shadows on her face, so she tried to lighten that up a little bit, which gave kind of this. It kind of ended up with a little bit of blown out areas, but I don't mind that. I like high key shots like that. I think that's kind of fun. All right, so Nancy says I had to talk over that entire time because I knew she was going to give me a reply. Just a little delay there. So she says this is her granddaughter. The bokeh was in the camera with a 70 to 200 2.8 lens. And then if she remembers right, she had to clone some things off in that area. So yeah, there's just it's just really shows up there. And there's a little bit of distractions there, Nancy. So I think it's, one of those things where, again, it was something in the background either way. So that's kind of what we're hitting on.
Yeah, I don't know what she had to clone out, but it must have been something distracting. For me, if you're shooting this at a county fair, I don't mind. I don't know what she cloned out. So it could have been, hey, that's a great choice to clone it out. But some of that background actually adds to it. So like you said, having her move over and having that homemade, I obviously don't want the focus to be quite as good. And she's shooting with a 70 to 200 2.8 lens. Depending on that distance, she could probably get some decent blur.
Right. Yep.
And I'm sure the sun is what caused that cotton candy part that's, I think it's a bluer part that's closer to us to, I don't know if that's completely blown out or just right there at the edge. And then of course the white shirt actually came out okay.
Right.
Which sometimes is difficult to control in a bright sun like that.
Yeah. And Nancy says that she doesn't use Lightroom all that much because she has a hard time reading the fonts. Nancy, we can help you with that. There's a way that you can actually adjust that so you can read them, so it's a little easier for you to use. But we can get into that some other time. The other thing that I wanted to mention here is I'm not sure if her granddaughter was like having fun or making a face or something. And that's something that Nancy would know. But me as an outsider, I don't know. And it almost looks like when I saw this shot, the reason why I didn't know if she was related or if it was a person she knew is because she looks kind of angry in the photo. And Mike, do you get that same kind of look?
No, what I was getting when I looked at it was she was just taking a big bite. She had her mouth up, you got your mouth up and you're kind of munching down on it. Right. And and Nancy could tell us if she was angry about having the photo, but I got that she was munching down on it.
Yeah, I didn't know so much as she's angry, so much as she just kind of looks like she's kind of make a grimacing face, like her eyebrows are scrunched down a little bit, and I wasn't sure if it was just stuffing your face, Nancy says. So there you go. So that always comes out to interpretation.
Yeah.
Everybody sees things a little differently. So that's why I asked. But I think it's a fun photo. I love going to fairs and taking photos of people having fun and all that kind of stuff. But it's really difficult. Gary, you're right. You can't be angry when you eat cotton candy unless you're young and someone's taking your photo and they don't want you to take it, because trust me, I've been there. So,
or unless you run out.
Some young folks are like, don't take my photo, but then they run around with their camera phone all the time, taking their own photos. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, it's one of those things where talking to people and that communication is something that we're losing track of with social media and everything these days. I did last year, my very first time doing street photography with a group of photographers, and walked up to my very first person to take their photo. And I said to him, do you mind if I take your photo? And it ended up being my favorite photo from the entire trip. It was a street vendor. It was absolutely like nothing special. I mean, everybody else is going to look at this photo and be like, I don't get it,
Yeah, but it's important to you.
For me, it was that first time. And I felt that I caught this guy's emotion of him working every day out in the cold, out and everything. He had that emotion on his face to me. But if I wouldn't have, if I just walked up and snapped his photo, it might not have been a good experience. I might have not got the emotion that I wanted to get from him. I'm not sure. But usually when we take pictures from afar of people, it can be misconstrued as something not good,
right?
Especially in this day and age. And I just think that don't be afraid to go up and talk to somebody and say, hey, can I take your photo, and have a little card with you that you can put your email address on, or your website, and say, I'd love to give you this photo back. I'm not going to charge you for it. You're not going to be one of those people that walk up, take a photo and say, $5 please, if you want this. Yeah. You're going to make much more than $5, whether it be in just good feelings between people, meeting someone new, or it might turn into, you shoot their wedding, or you go and take pictures of their home, or whatever. It could turn into a much larger paycheck for you just by talking a little with your fellow humans. So I think it's great. We're seeing photos like this from Nancy and from other people. I think you should keep it up, Nancy. I think there's a couple other people I think in the regulars group I would swap with Nancy, who always puts her stuff in the beginners group, which I love that humbleness that she has about that. So keep it up, Nancy. Keep going. We want to see more for sure.
Thanks, Nancy, and glad you were here tonight to give us some feedback. Sure. All right, you ready for the next one, AD?
Sure.
All right, up next is this image by Jan.
Hey! Jan! Woo!
And Jan is out there, yes. And Jan says, I took a picture of a rose while sitting on the ground. Didn't appear to be a storm, but suddenly one appeared. Was able to get a few shots and get to cover before it hit. I was looking to get a deep color from the rose. She took this in manual mode with a 18-135.
Oh, nice. Okay. Good on you for going manual mode. That's cool. I like the colors and the processing here. It's not overdone. Red and green is so hard to process in a lot of cameras and in a lot of images. Reds can be very difficult. So I think that she's done an excellent job there.
She got the deep red, yes.
Yeah, and that's really difficult to do. So excellent job there, Jan. Jan, you're out there. I just want to say thank you to Jan, by the way. She goes to every show that I'm involved with, I think, right now, and probably a whole bunch more. But she's always watching the JPEG to RAW show. She always goes to the Macro Live photography show, and she always joins my live stream. So thank you, Jan, for the support. It's amazing. And I'm glad that you're finally getting involved. This is what we want to see from those folks who are lurking out there. Get involved, man. Throw some photos at us.
And Jan was a big help to me personally.
My earphones right out of my head.
I'll wait for AD to come back so he can hear me.
See how professional we are here. There we go. I'm using the wrong microphone jack tonight.
And Jan was a big help to me personally by giving me this. So don't forget to record.
That's right. Yeah, because there's been a missed show or two out there
I've
because
missed twice.
twice now. Yeah. So awesome, Jan. Thank you for submitting. You obviously you're looking at the composition and you got that, you've listened to what we've said about having things a little off and working with the blank space back there. You don't have too many distractions in the background. I like that. I wonder like too about the focus. It looks like it's a little soft. I'm not sure if that might be the lens. It might be the resolution I'm looking at too, because I see these really small. One of the things that I thought that I would suggest for you after reading your little description, I always like to have like a little like words of wisdom for people to help their creativity. Whenever you're going out and you're thinking you're going to be shooting flowers or anywhere really, take an umbrella, even a small one with you, because if you think about what this rose might have looked like with water on it and in a little bit of rain, you could have sat there with your umbrella and taken a few photos even after that rain came. It might be even more powerful of an image with the water droplets and all that kind of stuff on there as well. So always try to take some of that with you especially if your camera's not waterproof. Obviously, you don't want to sit there. You can get rain jackets for your computer or for your camera as well. So just I'd offer that up to you as far as a suggestion.
Or if you can't hold the thing and your camera at the same time, go out after the storm.
Absolutely. Yeah. After the storm is great. I've even seen folks take a water spray bottle with them, believe it or not. But I think that's the thing is that I want to see her do more. This is just the first image and she did a great job just getting this image submitted to us, and the processing on it is very nice. It isn't overly done. The red is gorgeous. And I think it's a good first attempt here at a submission on the show. I mean, Mike, do you have any words that you can think of?
No, I love the red in this one. It's hard to tell with the focus, like you said, because this is a screenshot of an image or whatever. And I'd like to see the histogram with this one. It seems a little bit dark, but I don't know. I didn't pull it in Lightroom to see, and I don't want to. I'm afraid if I lightened it up, I might lose some of that depth of the red.
Yeah, it's really tough to do. Reds are hard.
I don't know what you would do there and keep that deep red.
You could maybe play with the contrast a little bit. I mean, the key when you're working with these reds and greens like this, and especially anything with bright red in it, is to make small adjustments, little teeny tiny adjustments. And HSL can always be a good tool as well. If the red gets out of control, you can use HSL to pull back that saturation just a little bit. And remember, saturation usually adjusts the reds and the orange in an image and the yellows, and your vibrance will usually adjust the blues and purples of your image. So you can use those two to kind of balance it out. But I think she's in the zone for tone here. The only question I had was maybe a little contrast, and then, like you said, bump up the exposure just a little bit. But you'd have to be very careful with that.
Yeah, and reds are something that's easy to overdo, and she didn't. Right. I think the red is really powerful here.
Yeah, on my calibrated monitor, it's a gorgeous picture of a rose. I mean, it's really well done.
That's why I got to look at it on this monitor, because on this monitor, it still looks great, but not as good. Over there, it looks so much better.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the images for the beginners group. We're going to do 2 this time and 2 next time. So if we didn't do yours this time, it'll be next time. So now we're going to move into the regular group, and up first is our guy who submits every time, Ebenezer, and I know I'm going to not get his last name, so I'm just going to say Ebenezer. The one thing Ebenezer doesn't do for us is give us much details on the shot.
That is correct.
So all he says is Queen of, I'm just going to spell it because I know I won't say it right, Jhansi.
Yes, I'm not sure in their language if they pronounce the J's or the H's are silent, so we don't want to butcher it. So that's a great idea.
And this was at a play, so there's a play based on an Indian freedom fight.
That's cool.
For me, I love the 2 spotlights coming in from the right, how they're coming down on her.
Yeah.
The 2 up top that you see that can see the actual light are a little distracting, but I don't know how you would get rid of those.
Um, no, I think they're fine.
Okay. And
For me,
and I like
I love everything about the image, Mike, except for the photo bomber kid in the
true.
back.
I
Yeah,
do like the sword, and he got the whole sword and cut off
yep,
the top.
absolutely. Yep,
The photo bomber, I don't know if he's sitting in the stands with this. He may not have had a choice to move
it's
somewhere else
tough. Yep,
because you don't know where the players are going to move around. So he may
yep.
not have had much choice there other than waiting and hoping that the guy moved.
Yeah, late. Having shot a lot of bands, I can tell you it's very frustrating when you don't have a pit pass to be able to move around
Hmm.
freely. If you have to shoot from your seat, you get one shot, and the only chance you get is when they're off mic, because there's always going to be a mic stand generally with a musician, and there's with plays there's always going to be other people.
Yeah.
So it's just it's one of those things where unfortunately his positioning there takes away from the photo, which is should be only be about her. And I think that's probably true in the play too. If it's freedom fighter, it's pretty much it's probably her shining moment
Right.
there. Cloning him out is pretty much not an option because it would be a massive amount of work, even though it could be done. As far as the lights and the other lights, I think that because I can see some scaffolding there, and you know what they are, and there's other lights beaming in. I think that they're even though they're bright, I don't think they distract. I think
Okay.
they're supportive of the story. I think if you tried to remove them, you would end up with
Yeah.
more headaches. Yeah, I agree, Gary. Gary says he loves the colors. I love the colors too. That was the biggest thing that popped out to me was the blues and the pinks and good skin tone that she has and obviously yeah, getting the whole sword in there is very cool too. So I just this is the thing, Ebenezer. It's very tough your situation. Maybe this image, you got to ask yourself, is this having the sword in the shot more important than having him in the sword in the shot? And maybe tightening this up and making it more about her. I would say personally, if she probably saw this, and okay, this is just my personal view on it, but if she saw that it was a pretty picture of her on stage, you could crop this in a portrait crop, and he would be out of the image, and you'd still get those light beams coming in, and maybe and crop it down a little bit so that he's not in the image with her, and she's still going to have that. Oh, you caught a picture of me on stage while I
Yeah.
was doing my big part, right?
You could do that. You
So
would lose the sword. You would lose, which is I like the sword, and
I do too.
you would lose that one left light if you did
Yeah.
that. But you could move it in tight on her. You would still get the shield.
Yeah, and I think it also would help if he wasn't looking right at the camera.
Yeah.
He is like, oh, someone's taking a photo, and that can happen if you use a flash. A lot of times, I'm not sure if he's using a flash here. I don't know if this was like
Yeah. I
a
don't know.
play at school or if this was in a big theater. Sometimes it's just a play at school, and you can use a flash. You can bounce your flash off the ceiling or whatever. And a lot of times that will attract people will look over, and you go to fire your second shot, and they're looking
Right
right
at you.
at you.
Yeah.
So, yep,
All right, Ebenezer. Thank you for continuing to submit.
absolutely.
All right. Up next is this image, and this is probably the one you were talking about earlier,
Yep.
from Gina Clark. And Gina says, at a kid festival today, caught this lovely moment. And one thing Gina did say, it doesn't say it here for you, AD, but she did say that one guy coming in from our left,
Yep.
she wishes that the guy wasn't there. But and
Yep.
I don't know what the timing was with her, why she couldn't let him pass and take it again. But whatever happened here, that guy is our photo bomber in this one.
Yeah, I just think there's too much so one of the things like I cropped this image down to a square crop,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just in on her and her daughter, and it was so much more powerful. Obviously the resolution's not there to be able to do that, but when I did that, the image had so much more power to it. I really really loved the image, and I really really love the image itself, except for the falsified bokeh to eliminate uh, the distractions. Here's the case. Here it is, Gina. Go talk to these two. Get up there, get their photo, get people to move, make the move to say the words. You're going to be so much more fulfilled for it. And you won't be, look at an image and be like, I had to do all this stuff. And you can still see all of it. I mean, you can still see the dude is still there. And it's because his leg is so dark and the effect is so pronounced that it's kind of distracting to what the real story is here. And if you want the real story, you got to do the real thing. You got to go talk to someone and you got to say, hey, I'd love to take your photo. You guys are amazing. And I'll share it with you so you can have it. You just think that mom's not going to want a picture with her daughter?
Yeah,
she's going to love you for that, man.
It is a big step for some people, though, to go and approach strangers.
So about the trips that we take every year. I had in 2017 we went to Yellowstone. The previous year was our first trip. We went to Maine, and we take 5 photographers out, and we rent a house for the week, and then I take them around, and we just do nothing but a solid week of photography. And I get inside. By the third day, I'm starting to get inside people's heads, and I'm starting to see I'll start saying little things like, I can see that they don't like. I had one photographer who's never gone up to someone and asked. She would never go to a location and then knock on the door and say, can I take a picture of your barn? Or can I take a picture of your car? Never. And on this trip, we went by this old boathouse that had a bunch of buoys hanging off the side. And she was like a kid in a candy store. She saw it. She's like, oh, I've always wanted to get a picture of one of those. I've always wanted to do it. And so we went on down the road, and on the way back, I stopped, and it had a sign that said, private, no trespassing. And I said, Mary, go talk. We need to go talk to the people that own this. If you want a photo of that boathouse, which is very unique and it's very cool, let's go talk. And the guy was so happy. He was just like, absolutely. Yeah, go. Thank you so much for asking. And she just could not believe the response that she got and how positive it was, because it was all in her head that it wasn't going to be a good experience. And
it's, sometimes you may have come across that person who says no.
Absolutely. And what's the worst they can say? No.
Yeah. And I will say, not to be sexist here, but if you're a female in this day and age, and probably all throughout history, I would not go alone to go up to some stranger's house.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of weirdos out there.
I wouldn't go we have a rule when we're doing these sorts of things. We always have a buddy system. We don't ever do this alone. And I say it all the time, no matter who it is, it's never, ever, ever, ever do you not go with another person. And I have a lot of stories where I know if I was alone, I might not be here right now to talk to you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. Not everybody's nice. You wish it was.
If you're in the city in a situation like this and Gina's out with her camera, you're that's pretty safe, pretty good, because there's a lot of people around. And like I said, the worst that's going to happen is she's going to say no, she doesn't want her photo taken. But I think it's a big step that has to, in this day and age especially, has to be taken by more people. Mm-hmm. I think especially photographers who get a bad rap, if they are just going around snapping photos. I've seen a lot of situations where that's actually ends up being a worse situation than going up and talking to somebody.
And I think if you approach in a nice way and fully willing to accept the no.
Absolutely. Then don't argue over it. Just say thank you. I totally understand.
Sure.
And then it's going to work out to be a nice situation. It's not going to be an issue for sure.
And Gary says, is that more cotton candy? I think it is. I think it is more cotton candy.
I know. I'm hungry for cotton candy after the show, Mike.
Yeah, me too.
Keep it up, Gina. I want to see more. I want to see more of you out there on the street. And I'd love to see some stuff where and share a story with us where you did approach somebody and it worked out for the positive. And I think this is one of those situations where I think that would have worked out for you. So if that helps move you in that direction a little bit more, then mission accomplished.
All right. Thanks, Gina. All right. Up next is this image by Jose
Matutina.
Yeah, you tell me that every time.
Yep.
And he says, Skipper feeds yellow. Is that the name of the thing?
Yep.
I don't know. And according to what he wrote here, barely half an inch across. Well, across. Okay, that makes sense. Barely half an inch across. These skippers are all over the yellow flowers in my backyard, taken with a Sony and some macro lens. I'm not familiar with that macro lens.
Every time, Mike. What does Sony have like a special like little thing over its name that makes you go, taken with a Sony?
It does. It has what do you call that whenever you have to add tone to the words? You know, they have that in there.
Yeah, it's made by a foreign language or something that you don't understand. Just because you're surrounded by Sony guys, don't take it personal. We don't take it personal that you're a Nikon shooter.
Okay.
Really don't. We still love you, man.
Oh, good. I love the yellow in this and whatever yellow flower it's on.
Yeah, so you've probably seen these in your backyard. They're like, you ever seen like the little white butterflies that are like everywhere in August? Yeah. So they come in yellow too. Not a lot of people know that, but they're white and yellow both. And so, yeah, these little guys are a challenge to capture. So he did an excellent job capturing him or her, depending on which. I'm not sure of the settings. And so I wanted to make a suggestion to Jose, which can be very challenging, especially for animals that are live and moving. I don't advocate shooting frozen animals or taking where they take an insect and they freeze it and then put a pin in it and take shots of it with macro lenses. So capturing them live can be quite a challenge. And the only thing here that with this image, and I'm not sure on the 90, if that's 90M 2.8 G lens, which is an amazing lens, is if he shot this at 2.8, I think I would have liked to seen it more at like 5.6 or
8.
As much as you could get with the light. And if you have to compensate with like the A7R2 will shoot an absolutely sparkling clean image at up to ISO 400 before you start seeing any noise at all. So you can at least get to ISO 400. And I also use the dynamic range optimization feature on the camera to even get more light into the camera. It does a little bit of post-processing on the raw data after you pull it in that can get you another stop, so that you can get that little bit more depth of field. Because I feel kind of robbed that the eyes are right there, but they're just out of focus. And I'm not sure if you're getting that too, Mike. I mean,
there's there's with macro, of course, and a bug that's small, you're only going to, unless you can do stacking, which I don't know how you could do that with a live bug.
It's possible, but it's very hard.
Yeah, it has to be a slow bug that's not moving.
Right.
In
Early
this case,
morning.
Yeah, when it's chillier, especially this time of year.
Yep.
And so you just had that sliver. I think that's the tongue, that black thing sticking out in front of it.
The proboscis, I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. This particular butterfly was feeding at the time, so that's pretty awesome for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, I'd like to know more, Jose. So share, man. We just did a show over on Janice's channel about focus stacking, and we had an amazing show that had the Rick Littlefield was on, who is the developer of Zareen Software, who does that focus stacking stuff. And some of the stuff that he was talking about, Mike, that they were doing,
oh my gosh,
you could do 3D animation, like from math. Like they figured out how to change the angle that you're shooting at without shooting different angles. I was like, holy cow! I'm like,
he was way over my head on most things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he wondered why people didn't ask a lot of questions. And I just said to him after the show, he said, people didn't ask a lot of questions. And I was like, Rick, I think you answered all of them, man. I mean, you answered all of the questions. So,
I need to get Janice.
It was an excellent show.
I need to get Janice on this show. Oh, not the show, but the regular show.
Absolutely. Yeah, yep. She's great.
All right. Up next, thanks, Jose, for the image. And up next, she has submitted before, but I don't think she's submitted in a while. And this is Anne Snodden?
Snodden?
Yeah. Snodden? Okay. And she says, found this at McRae Point Park, whatever, when we were camping last weekend on Ontario, Canada.
Yeah, this is cool. So she obviously was near one of the Great Lakes somewhere, I'm going to say, because most of these forests near the Great Lakes get a lot of these lichen all over them because of the constant fog, and the air is very moist there. And I love finding these little forest areas that have all this lichen growing all over the trees. It's really fascinating. Looks like something out of like Lord of the Rings or something. That's all I can think whenever I see that sort of stuff. My question here is Ange, did you zoom in a lot, or was there? I think this image was cropped somewhat because it seems quite soft, almost film-like to me. Mike, do you think it looks a little bit like film?
I didn't get that, but I did see it. It looked a little soft, and I don't know what it was because I can't see a spot where like the focus was off a little bit. She did get the background's pretty well blurred, but I think the focus is just a little bit off.
I think it's a little forward, right?
Yeah, maybe a little forward, and that's why we can't see it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I like the composition of this shot. I love that she captured like the little spider webs in between all of it. You could tell there's life there, living in this very small thing. But you got to be very careful with that focus and make sure that it. I would like to have seen the whole branch in focus.
I don't think Ange is out there, but if you're trying to focus on that little bitty branch.
Yeah,
that's challenging for the system to focus on that. Right. And if you've moved a little bit,
if you breathe,
if you move a little bit, which is easy to do, your focus could have come off of that just a tad.
Yep.
When you went to take
the key to doing that is to use your high-speed shutter so that you can get multiple shots. And generally, when I'm trying to do this, I'll get focus and I'll rattle off 10 or 12 shots of the same thing.
Yep. That is a great advice. Go ahead.
Yeah, and one of those shots will actually be in focus because as you're moving, as you're breathing, you will capture that plane of focus. And I've even found a lot of times where, Mike, what's the rule there? It's you take your 1 over the millimeters focal length, right, to ensure that you're not going to cause vibration. Well, I found that you can actually go much lower than that. And if you rattle off a bunch of shots with a still life image, not with something moving, but if you rattle off a bunch of shots, it will actually, one of those, as you're moving the camera, one of those actually stops when you're reversing direction. And one of those frames will actually be in perfect focus. And I've used that so many times when I didn't have enough light and I didn't want to bump the ISO way up. So that's just a little tip there that will help even back and forth and up and down movement as well. Is just don't be afraid to shoot those frames. You can always zoom in on them in the back of the eye finder, the viewfinder, zoom in, check focus on them, and the ones that are way out that you can definitely tell, just erase them so you're not using up card space if you need to. But
I think that's a great tip. I think a lot of people will go into single shot mode because they're thinking, I'm not shooting sports or high action stuff. I just need one shot. But I think you go into high speed mode, and that's really where I live, is in that. And you rattle off 3, 4, 5 images, whatever it is, or you said 12, but more than one. And when you look at them, you'll find that generally it's not the first image or the last image that was the sharpest.
Right. That's right. It's usually third or fourth for me.
Yeah.
And I will be honest with you, I don't ever use my single shutter mode ever. Never. It's always on high speed.
Probably the only time I do is when I'm on a tripod.
Yeah. No, I'm shooting brackets usually, so there's still multiple frames going.
But you think about that, if in AD's case and in my case, it generally is not our first image in that series that's the sharpest.
No.
So it's, AD said third, so it's probably around that range for me too. If you're not shooting that, if you're shooting single image, then that's like our first image in that series, and it's probably not the sharpest that you could have gotten.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
For any human being to hold perfectly still is darn near impossible.
Yeah.
You've got wind blowing on you, you're breathing. Even if you hold your breath, I've seen people still, move or fidget or something. I'm horrible with it. I just can't do it. So if I can shoot 1 over my focal length, I can usually get just shoot a couple of frames and get one of them in focus. But even then, or in without blurries in it. But that's tough for me to do. So I learned to do that multiple frame thing. I just bought a big SD card. I'm like, yeah, I'll fill it and sort it out when I get home.
You can you can always delete them later when you get home. You don't have to store them all.
Yep.
All right. Up next is, I think this may be a first time entering for this person, if I'm not mistaken. Dwayne Clipping. Is that what it says? Clipping Senior?
Yep.
And he says he's at Cardinal Marsh State Wildlife Area. And I'm sure what he's getting is either sunrise or sunset. He's getting there. And cool. And I forgot to say, and Ange, thanks for entering. We'd love to see more of your photos.
Absolutely. Yeah, always, Ange.
Yep. All right. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike. You can go first.
I love that he caught the sun into the water. That reflection he's got there. He's got a nice bit of sky. I'm sure he can't do anything about this. The water is a marshy area, so you're going to have junk on the water. Mm-hmm. Right? You can't do anything there. That foreground plants is the one that's distracting for me. So I don't know. Yeah, I know you're going to like it. But for me, I don't know what was a little bit over to the right. If he could have moved over there, I would rather not have them in there.
All right. Well, we're going to go full bore here on Mr. Senior, because I'm sure he can handle it.
Sure.
So first off, I'm not sure if it's an HDR image. The reason why I asked that is because it looks like there's some ghosting to the trees. While the sun seems to be fairly in focus and the clouds seem to be fairly in focus, it looks like those trees are like they were misaligned in the camera when the HDR was done. I would love to know that information from Dwayne if he has a chance to see this. If he could let me know, I would love to work with him on his HDR technique. That's something I specialize in, especially for landscapes. Let me talk about the positives here.
Okay.
I like the scene, the time of day. I love the fog. The detritus on the water, I think, is nicely framed around the sun. So I think that's pretty cool. I think that there's some of the little spots that I would have probably cloned out or gotten rid of. A lot of times older photographers, they don't do that sort of thing. They just shoot it and we're done. So that's cool. But if if you are doing some editing, Dwayne, I would, a few of those little dots that are back there, Mike, you could probably see this on my screen as I'm moving around, but some of these dots that are back in here on the reflected part of the tree line, I probably would have cloned some of those out a little bit to smooth out the image, a little bit less distraction. And if it was an HDR image, that means we use HDR for a reason. One of those is that we can get more detail in the shadows and in the highlights. And here's a case where I think that the reason why these are distracting, these nice tall pieces of grass here in front of you are distracting, is because they're such a contrast to everything else in the image. Seems rather flat. And so then you have these really dark things like right in your face. So you've listened to previous critiques of other landscapes, and I've talked about distractions and does the elements of the image work together. I think this was a missed moment in the post-processing department, because I think if you would have brought up the shadows so that we could see the detail a little bit more in that grass, so it was less of a silhouette, and that it would have kind of went more with the rest of the image, so we wouldn't have that heavy contrast in that one area. I love the fact that one of the pieces of grass is pointing right to the sun. That is excellent. I don't know if that was something that he planned to do or not, but I just like that part of the composition. But the darkness of the grass is what's disturbing or bothering me with the image. I also mentioned too that water is always absolutely horizontal. Whenever you're taking landscape photos, please make sure that your horizon lines on your water are absolutely flat and not leaning to one side. This is leaning down on the right-hand side. Water, unless it's a flowing river, and this is a swamp, and I know it's not flowing that much, is not going to be slanted down like that. So you're going to have to rotate that a little bit in post to get that so that it's nice and level. This is a what we call a reflective symmetry image. So he did nice by putting the horizon in the center of the image. I don't think that that's a problem here. But remember, when you do that, you're really saying that the background or the distance is really the story, That's why we do that, is the reflection and the distance. So you're kind of, Mike brings up the point of, we have this thing right in front of us. What's the story here, Dwayne? Is it about that grass, or is it about the sunrise? Is it about the whole scene? Because if it's about the whole scene, lightening up the grass is going to fix that. If it's about the grass, then cropping will fix that. If it's not about the grass and it's about the background, then you need to reframe the shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that makes sense to everybody. If those are the three things that you're going for, if that makes sense. I like the image. I love the time of day. Keep going out. I love that fog in there. I think that you probably could have maybe turned, if you use Lightroom, turn the dehaze to the negative side a little bit and kind of given this a softer feel. Might have given it more, more of that mood. But I got to question the processing, and I think it was probably a photo that can still be saved. It just, we need to know more about the post processing on it.
So two things. One, depending on where you live in the world, down here is starting to get cooler at night, and then it'll warm up during the day. So water like this, if you go out in the morning, if you go out in the morning, it will often have fog on it because it's still warm and it has that cold air on top of it, and you get that morning fog on it. So it can be really, really good. You mentioned, I don't know what he uses for editing, but a lot of people use Lightroom. I use, and I think I got this from you, AD. I use the Stream Deck from Elgato, I think is what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, Elgato. And I've, over time, getting more and more commands I'm putting on there. So one of them I just added was in Lightroom, there's a line, a horizontal line you can put on there. Yep. What is that? I don't remember what the key is because now I just press a button. But you can add that line, take it on and off, and that's a great way. You just move that line. I know you have also the thing where you just move it up to the top of the screen, but you can add that line and then move it anywhere on the screen you want it, on the image you want it, and see if you have a straight line.
Yep.
So now I have just a button I can press and have that, and then press it again, and it comes off. But there's also a keyboard shortcut if you wanted to do it that way. Yeah,
and sometimes I'll look at an image, and I've had images where they've been like a curved lake and then another opposite bend in the lake. So it's been very hard to see where that line is at. So a lot of times if I look at it and I'm like, it doesn't look right, I'll just grab a hold of the rotate and turn it until I'm like, I feel better now that it looks comfortable to me. Because sometimes the lines don't line up. Sometimes I even have to use the alignment tool in Photoshop to straighten different angles, because sometimes you can take a picture of a perfectly straight horizon off to an angle and it won't look right. So there's a lot of different tricks there, but always make sure your horizon's straight. It's very, very important to make this is supposed to be a serene image, and anytime you add a tilt to a camera, you add tension to the image. So we don't want tension here unless I'm a duck.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that there's a hunter out there. I don't want tension in my image. So keep submitting, Dwayne. Give us more information, my friend. Tell us why you took the shot, what your goal you were going for. I don't, honestly, perfectly blunt with everybody out there. Don't care where you shot it. Don't care who it was that you took the photo or how you processed it, unless you're asking for processing, questions. But feel free when you submit these photos. Ask me questions directly. Ask Mike questions directly in your descriptions. And also tell us why you press the shutter button or why you process something in a certain way so I can better understand what you're going for and give you a better critique. Yep. For sure.
All right. And speaking of that, somebody who does a great job of doing that is the next guy up. And the man, Millen. And Millen says, hold on. I'm going to have to shorten some of this up because Millen gives us a lot of information.
Oh, he always does.
And if you're in our Facebook group, you can read all this. So if I cut through some of it, you can let us know. But he apologizes. He doesn't know the actual name of this plant. And in English, anyway, he knows it in his language. So if someone does know the name of it in English, let him know. So he says he pushed the trigger on that one because he spent almost an hour trying to tie up this plant to a wooden pole. The vine is new. He planted this last year, I think he said. Saw this tie and how it was leading to the fresh new leaves of the vine, so I wanted to try some nice bokeh. Let's see. He personally loves the results. And then he goes into, I think, some of the fuzziness that he's gotten critiques on. That is the actual rope. So I think we're seeing the actual tie come down toward that, and that's what's causing some of that fuzziness. That's just the tie.
So he says he didn't do any serious processing.
Yeah.
That's cool. So he starts it out with, it's a trellised vine, I think is what he was having
It's
trouble.
going to grow grapes.
Yeah, it's a grape vine. So I think that his thing was he wasn't sure if trellised was the right word. I think that's perfect. That's exactly right, Millen. So better than I could absolutely even think of saying it in your language. So great job, doing very well communicating with us. Some of us ignorant English speaking folk over here.
Yeah, I can barely speak English. Come on.
Right, exactly. I think that I like the end result too here, and I think you're onto something cool with this. I think it's too early though to get what you really want out of it. I think what you're probably looking for is the point where the grapevine starts to curl around the ropes and the that sort of stuff. So you might want to, obviously revisit this plant and with the same technique though. I wouldn't change the technique. I really like that a lot. Color and all that stuff is gorgeous here. Growing grapes is something we do here in the Finger Lakes. It's something we're famous for here in the Finger Lakes. So we see a lot of grapes, something I don't shoot much of anymore simply because there's just so much of it here. It's ridiculous. So I think it's great that you're doing this. But just keep at it when the vine has had a chance to mature. And I will tell you guys, yes, he definitely got some bokeh-licious. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but I don't care. I guess only Kai can't say it anymore. But I don't work and never work for Digital Rev, so it's bokeh-licious for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that one of the things, Millen, that you always bring interesting images here, and you always have that you're learning something behind it. So I think that you make a good point in that it takes work to get unique and different images here, even if it means starting to grow grapes and tying up the vine and doing it all yourself, and then having the pride to take an interesting photo like this of it afterwards shows that you care about your photography and what you're doing. And that's when anybody submits any images, that's really all I like to see in anybody. I don't care how good or bad they are. It's just that they're trying. And that's the important part, because y'all get there. Everybody will get to their happy place if they just keep trying and don't give up. And sometimes, and don't listen to guys like me. Sometimes it just depends, take what you want away from what we do, and hopefully you'll be able to grow with some of it, and what you don't want to take with you, just discard it. That's fine too. But Millen has really run with a lot of what we've given him, and it shows in every photo that he submits. So keep at it, Millen. I want to see this. One suggestion I'd make is that everybody shoots grapevines when there's grapes on the vine. Another very cool time to shoot grapes is in late November. If you're in the Northeast where we grow grapes, late November, the leaves turn a brilliant orange color on the. So just before they die, they make these beautiful reds and oranges, and they are spectacular. Grape leaves are amazing. So if you want to get some interesting fall photos and you might have missed peak week, go to where the grapes are, because that's.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to give them a lot of opportunities in the future.
Absolutely.
To take more photos, as that thing starts wrapping around that his tie there and everything.
He's given good meaning to grow your own. Yeah, for sure.
And I love that Millen is not limited to one subject. He shoots a wide variety of subjects.
He's still trying to find his niche, and I think that's or niche, as I'm supposed to say it. I think that's really important that people do that they go against what they like sometimes to discover new things. I always suggest, if you're a landscape person, try do some street photography. You want to see what's really hard, because street photographers will be like, that they can't take a landscape photo, but they can go out and kill it in street photography, and it's amazing. If you go out and try some of these other things, how it will open your vision to what you're currently doing. When I was a musician, I would learn to play different instruments. And I would listen to music that, people would be like, well, what kind of music influences you? I'm like, music influences me, everything. Well, like, you don't like rap, do you? And I'm like, I listen to rap. I listen to everything. I don't care. It's going to have an effect on me. I'm going to learn something from it. So uh, I always felt that any type of creative flow, you always should reach out to things that maybe you normally wouldn't, that you don't like, and try it and see what happens. You'll be pleasantly surprised. So,
All right. Well, thank you, Millen, and thank you always for giving us good
absolutely.
information.
Yeah,
All right,
keep it up.
Up next, we have two more. This one
Yes.
is from Christina Benge, and I gotta say, I love this image. I love it. It has this, I don't know how to describe it, but this soft feel to it. I'm not a big fan of bugs, but the bug even has, its colors, I think, go well with the pink here of whatever flower rose this is.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me say, she says, I'm not a bee. She was there. Christine was out there to get photos of bees. And so she sat in her rose bushes, but seemed to only have this little guy visit. She finally caved in and let him or her have her moment with in front of the lens. It sat very curious watching her for quite some time, allowed her to reposition and capture colors in the background that she felt might really help highlight his shimmer.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think so. A common housefly, hard to make a common housefly like awesome.
And she did, I think. And I like, yeah, I think.
Yeah, this is an emerald housefly. They're I will tell you, Christina, keep after it, because there's actually I found out last year is the first time I ever saw an emerald bumblebee, and they're a bee, but they're this color, and they are absolutely the most unbelievably cool thing I've ever seen in my life. And I think that her, what she says in the images, she went out to get one thing, came back with another. I think this is a either way, if it's a bee or a fly, either one, a beautifully executed image. The light is falling on from the top of the fly, and she has that light into darkness over to the right of the image. The petals are showing a nice soft spot to land on. She's got the point of focus is perfect on the eye. So she took a beautiful portrait of a otherwise
Disgusting.
unphotographable insect that really is not all that interesting. She took her creativity and made this what it is. So she did not take this photo. She made this photo.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that we're trying to teach, is that it's one thing to take a photo, it's another to make it. And you really need to make your photos. And she's really she submits once in a while, and this one definitely stands out in the crowd for all the ones that she submitted. I really enjoyed this. The minute I saw it, I was like, well, if they're picking a winner this week, it's definitely this shot. I think is very, very cool. So keep at it, Christina. I love it. I always like your shots, but this one stands above all the others. And I'm not huge into insects. That they annoy the crap out of me because I've never been able to capture them properly. so you did an excellent job at doing this. So keep it up for sure.
Well done, Christina.
Congratulations. Right. Yeah, good image.
Last image before we have AD critique mine is this image from, let's see, who is this? Norman, from Norman.
Yes.
Well, let me get his name, Norman Schultz. And Norman says, Jaguar, very low light, through glass at Milwaukee County Zoo.
Yeah, so I had a question for Norman. Is this, I don't know if Norman's out there.
He was earlier.
Yeah. This animal doesn't look alive to me. A little too glassy.
I don't know. Maybe you may be getting an effect from the glass.
No, I mean in the eyes and also around the lips. It looks to me like an animal that was on display. I don't know. I want Norman to tell me. It's a little soft, and I'm not sure if that's because of the glass, or what it is. So if Norman, there you are, alive and kicking. All right. So Yeah, it's probably the glass then. Glass is tough because it's basically you're taking your beautiful lenses and you're sticking a piece of junk in front of it.
That's probably got fingerprints and hand oil and everything all over it.
Well, and then it's not optically perfect.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that's challenging with zoo shots. This one might be one of those images where I would try that super resolution thing that's rolling around out there and take 3 or 4 shots of right in a row, and then because there'll be slight movement, you can actually combine those images and get a better looking image than you could off the single shot. But I think that's mostly that's the biggest problem here is just that he's shooting through glass, and that's unfortunate. I always get frustrated when I go to zoos and places. Unless I can get a clear shot of the animal without anything between me and it, I usually just keep the camera parked and just enjoy it. Because that's the problem. So yeah, Norman says he was shooting at a slight angle to the glass, and that too can cause some distortion and softness in the image, which isn't his fault at all. It's just a product of what it is. So I like so let's talk a little bit about the composition. I think that there's no real distractions in the back. There's a little something down there at the bottom, but that doesn't really, that's kind of, he blended that in quite nicely. So I think the colors and stuff are cool. The composition's good. But beyond that, I don't know how much better you can make it, seeing that you had to shoot it
through glass,
through the glass itself. Yeah.
It was probably really dark too.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he submitted it. I will tell you, one of the things that'll help you a little bit, Norman, is opening up your aperture as wide as you possibly can go will sometimes eliminate I know that sounds weird, but sometimes it'll eliminate the foreground problems such as glass. I know it definitely will help you if you're shooting through a fence or something like that for animals. But sometimes with glass, it'll help a little bit. Sometimes it won't. And also, if it's not the glass and you were shooting it like, say, f2.8, sometimes that can make the image look a little soft at distance too, whereas most lenses are their sharpest at f8. So, and that's difficult to shoot, especially if you're inside without, if there's not a lot of good light on the animal. It's just you put yourself in a super, super difficult, without the highest end glass and the best lighting. It's like when a band asks you to come shoot, they don't have any footlights. It's like, you want me to make you look good in these junky bar lights? It's just not going to happen.
Right. Sometimes when I shoot baseball, they often will not let you on to the field, and even if you
shoot through the net.
Even if you're on the dugout, they want you to keep that gate closed because they're afraid, I guess, a ball is going to get in there. So you often have to shoot through the fence. And so with that, you want your lens as close to the fence as you can without, to make sure it's not going to scratch it. But I generally have the hood on. And so you get right up against the fence and you shoot as wide open as you can. I can't use my 5.6 lens because that would show that. So my 2.8 lenses, I can use those. Even then, though, it's going to have this feel like you've lost a little bit of the contrast.
Right.
And if you're not careful when you start editing, you can almost see the fence come back. So you can get rid of most of it, but it's still going to have a little bit of effect when you're shooting through the fence.
Yeah, and you might be able to clean this image up with using a program that has something like a high, low, and medium detail adjustment, such as Luminar. I think I just found a real nice setting in Topaz Studio that allows you to make adjustments that will work on the micro contrast of the image to sharpen it a little bit more without any artifacts or anything like that. Remember, sharpening generally is a contrast adjustment. A lot of people don't know that. There isn't like a lot of science that goes behind it. It's actually just micro contrast that you're using to sharpen the image. That's why it introduces noise sometimes. So you might be able to do that to sharpen the image a little bit. I don't know. I'd have to see like the raw image to really give any details on how we might be able to make this sharper or even know that it's sharper, because again, I'm looking at a picture of a picture. So it's tough for me to really comment on that. But other than that, I think it's awesome. They're wonderful animals to shoot. And I got a friend of mine, Christian Meerman. If you look him up on the internet, he just basically, that's like his thing, man. All he does is shoot animals in zoos and makes these beautiful portraits. But he's just made that the only thing he does because it was so difficult. So it's one of those things where it takes a lot of practice. So hopefully Norman will be able to practice on doing this, and maybe even fill us in with some tricks that he's figured
Right.
out, because I'm sure he's going to discover more things than I have, because I just get frustrated with it. And I'm like, yep, I'm not good at this. I quit. So,
All right, Norman, thanks for entering every month. Thank you, Norman, for that.
Who's on the chopping block now,
and
Mike?
Now we're going to have Mike, me. I'm going to be next. So this is what we do. I'm starting to do this where we'll put one of my images up. This is another sports. Next show won't be a sports image. So AD can really rake me over the coals next time. But this one is one I think I've described this one before, maybe even shown it before. But this is one where I get down at the finish line, and I'm either sitting or laying on the pool deck to get as close to their level as I can, wanting to try and get some reaction of them, either a reaction from when they finish or when they're looking back at the scoreboard. And that's what she's doing here, is looking back at the scoreboard. As far as editing, I probably lightened it up a little bit, and I did do a slight crop to it. She's a little bit off on the third, so I edited it a little bit to get her more where I wanted her on the third. But it shouldn't have been a heavy crop. All right, so you want to do a screen share? Is that what we're doing here?
Sure, bring her on over.
Hold on. I got to get us set.
Like magic. Transfer.
All right, there we go. Boom.
Look at that. How'd we do that?
That's magic.
Magic. All right, Mike.
All right.
So I love the depth of field here. I love the lineup of the other swimmers. I mean, if it's not the first swimmer in the row, it's pretty tough to get this image, right? Because and I like she's obviously looking up at her time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what's going on here. So I mean, without me, you didn't tell me anything about this image beforehand. So this is just stuff that I figured out on my own just by looking at it. So you're on the right track there. Okay. I think if you're taking photos of kids for parents, and you want a dramatic photo or a photo of some emotion, you nailed it. That's it right there. If you were going to do any editing to this one, and I kind of cheat a little bit here because I think you talked about this with Tim a little bit on this, is the bar coming out, which is the kick bar that they use to launch off from when they're doing the butterfly. Usually they'll hold onto that bar and launch themselves backwards and start the backstroke, I guess it is, not the butterfly. I used to swim, so I should know this stuff. But so I think that the only thing that my suggestion there was to actually edit that bar out of there. So I did a quick edit just to show people the before and after. And then I'll tell you something funny about it after it's done. So, so what I did, the very first thing I did is use content aware remove.
Ooh, look at that.
So what I did is took the original image here, and I would just use the tool here to go ahead and cut this out. Now it seems like I'm cutting out her head, which I am on purpose. And I removed this one. Actually removed all of this. So I did that. And then I selected the fill, and then of course I always work on another screen. So I did content aware, and it just quickly takes that out, puts a little lump in her head usually once it does it. So oops, let me do that on the right. Let me undo that. Oh my God, they changed. I don't even want to talk about it right now. They actually changed the undo key on. Why do you change the undo key?
They changed the undo key?
They changed the undo. I'll talk about it in a minute. We're going to do something with Photoshop to show everybody some stuff here. But all right, so I just used that. That got rid of that, but it left kind of a lump in her swim helmet there. So if you see the before and then the after. So I went back and fixed that by copying the original there and just masked that out.
Okay.
And then I did this one down here as well, because I had an idea of getting rid of that yellow and stuff in there. So I just did another one. Oops. Yeah, that one. And got rid of that one. And then you'll notice that after I did that, deselect with Control or Command D, that this kind of makes kind of like some noisy stuff in here. So by using the healing tool, though, you can actually click on those, and the heel tool will straighten that line back out for you.
That's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of leaves it bokeh, but you got all this kind of like still got noise going on. So the next thing that I did was I actually did something that everybody else has been doing in all of these shots is I took the image and let me just, is there a way you can turn the mask off? I should know these things. I don't think there's got to be like a key combination. Anyways, so here's the finished image. And what I did is I used a blurring, a tool called, it's from Alienware. It's not in here because we're going to show you how to get your plugins back because Photoshop and Adobe's ruining everything. So all I did was just made a selection and caused it to bokeh everything out in the background. And then I masked in. Oh, let me show you. I think the whole photo's here. So you can see, yeah, you can see it. Watch, I'll show you. Let me put the mask back in here. We're going to paint in the mask. Remember that white reveals and black conceals. So I'm just going to reveal everything in the mask all at once. We'll just do it. So when I got done, it made that image. And I didn't like that. I'm like, this is not what Mike's vision was. This wasn't the problem with the image per se. The problem was really just that one part. So what I did to fix that one part was I just wanted the blur to be up here. So all I did was take a mask and I'm gonna conceal all except for the part that I really want masked up, which was that one part up there in the upper corner. So I want all of Mike's definition and detail down here, and there we go. We end up with the distractions blurred out, which they weren't important to this image. If you go back to the beginning, they didn't really make any sense of the subject. The subject is her in the water and looking up at the score, and then a pole coming out of her head. So I wanted to make sure that pole was gone. So artistically, I would have removed that.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like this much better.
No one's going to miss that if it's not there.
Right.
The funny thing I wanted to tell you is that because I know you're like stuck on this, so I went and fed your image into that stupid analyzer program.
Yeah. So I got a 9.2 on the one I did. Yes.
Yes, and we effectively doubled your score.
Oh, I got an 18.
Yeah. So I think it was, I don't know why, just removing distractions, but that pretty much was all I had for it. I thought it was a great image, and I think the way it stood. If you just go back to the way it stands, by the way, the thing they screwed up was it used to be Control Alt Z went backwards in your history, and Control Z just went back one step. Now they switched that. So now it's Control Alt Z if you want to go back one step. If I hit it again, see how that's Control Alt Z. It doesn't go backwards through the timeline. It just does the one edit. And now Control Z goes all the way back to the original edit. Because I don't why Adobe? You just don't make any sense to me. So anyways, I just wanted to share that edit with you. And the other thing I wanted to share with everybody, because I get asked this a lot, and it's my #1 most viewed video on YouTube, whenever they release a brand new version of Photoshop now, or any of the programs, Premiere, this works for all of them, by the way, and it works on a Mac, works on a PC, the whole 9 yards. What happens is they install a brand new version. They leave the old version behind. So when they went from 2018 CC to 2019 CC, they left the version behind.
Yeah.
And what happens is they erase all of your plugins. So normally I have like a whole list of plugins down here that are all gone except for the ones that I just installed. How you get them back is you need to go in. I'm going to show you in Windows. In the Mac, it's a little bit more complicated, but if you look it up, you'll be able to find a way to do this. Just say, how do I copy my plugins to my new installation of Photoshop into Google on a Mac, and you'll be able to find this. So all you do is go to where Adobe's at. So it's in program files on your C drive, if that's where you installed it, and then it's inside Adobe. And now we have what Adobe thinks is great. They gave us all these funky, giant, stupid icons now for folders. Yeah, I'm only a little upset. So all you have to do is look at your previous installation of Photoshop.
Okay.
So my previous installation was 2018. which is right here, Photoshop 2018. I did have actually CC 64-bit, but since I already did this fix for 2018 when they originally screwed it up, all I have to do is do it again for this one and it'll fix it. So I just go into that folder and then into plugins, and you're going to see all of your plugins are here. So I see everything is in here. So what I'm going to do is go back out one to the plugins, and I'm just going to say that right click on that and say that I want to create a shortcut.
Okay.
And that's going to say I can't create it here because you're not the administrator, even though you're signed into your administrator on all bunch of BS from Windows. So I'm just going to say, okay, whatever, you're the boss. And it just made a folder. Make it so you guys can see everything here all at once. It just made a folder on my desktop. It's called Plugins Shortcut.
Oh, it made it anyway.
Well, it makes it on your desktop. It won't make it in your program's file so that you could easily just cut and paste. Oh no, they have to make it somewhere else to make it complicated. So they make it on your desktop. So if you just click on this, right click on this and select cut, and then you want to go to your new installation, which is the fancy one down here with the icon, and then go into that plugins, another fancy icon.
Yeah.
Because, and then paste your plugin shortcut in there. That's all I did is that. Go ahead and close that window. You can go ahead and close down Photoshop. No, because I already have a nice edit that I'll send to Mike if he wants it.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to reopen Photoshop one more time. You can enjoy the crab nebula there.
We're waiting for this. That means your files are still in that 2018 installation, right?
Yeah, they're still in the old installation.
So you got to make sure not to delete that old installation.
Yeah, don't delete that old installation. If you do delete Photoshop completely, I would copy that whole plugins folder out of there someplace safe and then make your shortcut from there and drag and drop it into that other one, and boom, all your stuff is back.
Yep.
And they just keep doing this. What's wrong with Adobe?
Let me ask you this question, because when you go to install this, don't you have the option to delete the old version?
Nope.
I thought you did.
Not on Adobe CC anymore. They just install all their crap. I mean, I'm losing hard drive space like it's free.
Yeah, because I don't need 5 versions of it.
Nope, me neither. So, but just remember, if you want to save your plugins and you don't want to reinstall all of them, go into that your old installation and copy those out of there onto someplace else on your hard drive, and then you're safe to delete the old version of Photoshop and make your shortcut to that plugins folder wherever you put it, and drop it into your new installations plugin folder, and boom, everything's back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Got a lot of questions on that one.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. I think that's it. Mike, did you have any questions about the edit?
No, I love what you did. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. Next show, I'll have one for you that can really rip up.
Oh boy.
All right. So that's the images for this show. Before we head out, let's talk about how you can subscribe to the show. Of course, if you're watching us through YouTube, subscribe right here to our YouTube channel. Hit that little bell so you get notified when we have a show coming up. If not, if you are subscribed, but you also want to get the show other ways, we're on iTunes, video large and small, and on YouTube, of course, and then Vimeo. And this whole list here that you're seeing here, if you can't remember all this or want to go back and check it out, it's over on jpegderaw.com/subscribe. All right. And to get a hold of AD, because he's not on Facebook, more and more people are not on Facebook anymore. If you want to get a hold of AD, go over to theexplorographer.com. And over there is all kinds of different ways to get in touch with him. One of them is going to be going away here. I don't know when, but not too far from in the future.
Yep.
And that is G+. So you have it listed here, G+. I know that a lot of us were active back in the heyday of G+, but they're killing it.
Yeah, I've made most of my career is because of G+ and the people that I have met. I met Trey Radcliffe on G+. I met all of the people that I worked in the Arcanum, Janice Sullivan, Scott Norris, you name it. They were all because of G+, and they had a data breach, and they've decided that because their API is now released, that the only The only thing that they can do now is eliminate the platform. So it's going to be gone.
Yep. And Molly Morgan says, "Hey, Andy."
Hey, Molly.
She's over on Facebook, so you can't see her.
Awesome.
Quote. All right. So also, the way I follow AD a number of ways, but one of the ways I see most of his posts is through Twitter. So if you're not following him on Twitter, follow him over there. They're saying we're having an echo, but I don't know. It seems like every time we pull up a web page, that seems to happen. We're going to get off that web page and go to the next one. And we were talking about this earlier with Janice Sullivan, who does the Macro Show. AD, I think you produced that show for her and everything.
It's actually part of her. That's part of her patronage. Is actually she hires me through Patreon to produce her show.
Yep. So if you're not already a patron of AD's, go over to go over to the creators over on patreon.com, and there's a link on AD's site too to get there and check that out. For a number of different support levels, you get access to all your plugins, all your Lightroom presets and all that kind of stuff too, right?
Yeah, pretty much you get access to everything that's mine except for my cameras and lenses. So all the stuff that's in my Photo Tools store. I'm actually in the process of establishing accounts for everybody. So not only will they get access to all of it, but if they want to, they can actually become affiliates and make money off other people buying my plugins. So awesome. I'm working on getting those accounts set up for everybody. It's been slow going simply because some very big projects, which in the post show, I'm going to share one of those projects that's about to be released with everybody tonight if you stick around afterwards. So
yeah, hang out in the post show. There's a number of different support levels you can do here, all the way up to like Janice is doing. I think there's even a level above that where he's helping Janice produce her show. But it's just any membership, and when you do a live show on topics that you're taking feedback from us on what your topics are, you put that out to us, and we get to watch it live, interact just like you can here. You get to interact while AD is doing the show. And he's had some great ones in the past.
I'm very behind right now. As we get closer to the holiday season, my schedule gets frantic. So it gets more difficult for me to be able to do the live streams. So just keep the faith. We got some more coming. I've got some programs that I'm working on, some demonstrations that I'm working on. There's a lot of new software out there right now to demonstrate. On One Photo Raw just came out with some big features. So yeah, I'm excited to show all those, but I have to make sure what I'm showing you, I know how to operate. I just don't get on the show and be like, oh, let me fumble through this. I need to actually learn this stuff myself. So on top of finding time to do a stream, I have to find time to learn stuff as well. So it's been fairly difficult as we get closer to the holidays for me.
Well, the one thing all of us have the same amount of time.
Yes,
it doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are, whether you're male, female, anything. We all have 24 hours.
So, pretty much.
Yeah, we all are in that same boat. So that's you can only do so much. But anyway, hang out for the post show, and he's going to show us something special. But check out the Patreon if you haven't already, and you'll get to see some of that stuff firsthand. All right, thanks guys for coming out. Maybe we'll talk in a post show about when the next show is. But until next show, keep shooting. Good night, everybody.
Good night.